Hello, and welcome to Pasadena ISD. My name is Dr. Linda Rodriguez, and I am the coordinator of the district's Behavior Response Team. The objective for this e-course is to provide you with a basic understanding of PISD's model of behavior management, or how we implement positive behavioral interventions and supports to create optimal learning environments for children. This e-course consists of 3 modules. Module 1 will explain PISD's model of behavior management and teach you a very basic brain state model that we use to positively respond and intervene with students. Module 2 will provide you with interventions and strategies that you can use to build a positive socio-emotional climate in your school and your classroom. And Module 3 will teach you how to use the STOIC concept and CHAMPS approach to structure your classroom for success. So let's get started. Don't forget to use the pause button anytime you need more time to read or reread a slide. PISD implements PBIS and believes in using a preventative, proactive, and positive approach when looking at and responding to behavior. PBIS stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. We focus on providing students with physical and social-emotional safety and connection through proactive, positive, and preventative methods. We believe that most students, almost 80% of your classroom, will succeed when a positive school culture is promoted. The underlying theme is teaching behavioral expectations in the same way as any core curriculum subject. We use 2 main resources: the Safe and Civil series by Randy Sprick and Conscious Discipline Philosophy by Dr. Becky Bailey. The Safe and Civil School series is a collection of practical materials designed to help schools improve safety and civility across all school settings through positive and proactive methods. We use 2 main concepts from the series: Foundations and CHAMPS. Foundations refers to your school-wide discipline plan and is led by your school's Safe and Civil committee or team. CHAMPS is an approach for structuring your classroom and establishing your classroom management plan. You will learn more about CHAMPS in Module 3. So let me set the scene. First day of school arrives. You know the school-wide behavioral expectations and the plan, and what to do if a student misbehaves. Your classroom is set up for success and looking great. Your lesson is planned and ready, and you are ready to meet and greet the amazing, beautiful minds that you will teach all semester or year. Then it happens. Chaos! One of your pre-K students is being dragged into your room screaming and crying, and others begin to cry. Or a shy and timid 5th grader refuses to walk into your classroom, won't say a word, and just stands in the doorway. Or you're 20 minutes into your first lesson and an angry 9th grader storms into your room, distracts the class, sits where he wants, covers his head with his hoodie, and ignores anything you say. Now stop. Take a deep breath and relax. Almost every student at some time or another brings problems with them that affect their learning and will interfere with your efforts to teach. We know that students cannot learn and cannot focus or concentrate when they are hungry, scared, angry, etc. While having a school-wide and classroom discipline plan for safety does provide significant improvements in reducing the number of discipline referrals and is our district's primary starting point, we still struggle to respond to the most challenging behavioral cases, as just described. It seemed that the students who needed us the most were the students we isolated, removed, or found the hardest to help. We just didn't know what to do. Conscious discipline was a natural fit to our positive, proactive philosophy. We know and have learned in all the classes we took in college that we cannot change the realities of what many of our students have to deal with at home, but we can make school and our classrooms a place where they feel safe and connected to us and each other. Conscious discipline empowers us to be conscious of brain-body states in ourselves and children. It then provides us with practical skills we need to manage our own thoughts, feelings, and actions. With this ability to self-regulate, we, the adults, are then able to teach children to do the same. As you watch the next video, pay close attention to how conscious discipline differs from the traditional model of discipline most of us grew up with.
Welcome to Conscious Clips in our time together. Conscious Clips is a series of videos to introduce to you the skills and powers of conscious discipline. So, what is conscious discipline? Conscious discipline is an emotional intelligence program to help adults and children respond from the higher centers of their brain instead of react from the lower centers of the brain to conflict in life situations. So basically what it is, it's a shift from a very traditional, compliant, obedient model of discipline to one that's a relationship-based model of discipline. And each of these have different core beliefs. In the traditional model, the goal is to make children behave. It's based on the notion we can make children mind. We can make our spouse change. We can make coworkers be more productive. Now, I don't know about you, but I've lived long enough to know that you can't make anybody else change. You can't, and maybe you've tried. Maybe you've tried to have a smoker quit smoking, a drinker quit drinking, or an 8-month-old eat those peas. It's impossible to make others change. Now, the conscious discipline says, since that is impossible, what is possible? It's possible to change ourselves. And because we're in dynamic relationships with each other, if I change myself and the dance we do with each other, then you, in turn, will change how you respond to me. The second difference between traditional discipline and conscious discipline is traditional discipline relies on rules and consequence as its foundation. And it says if it could just find the right rule or the right consequence, this behavior would go away. Now, if you go from jail cell to jail cell in America, you could ask almost everyone in jail, say, do you know the rule about killing? And they all could say yes. So obviously, rules and consequences aren't going to get perfect behavior because we're not short on rules. We'd all have a wonderful society. So conscious discipline says what governs behavior, what's the foundation, is a relationship with one another. And our relationship with each other gives us the willingness to want to solve our conflicts. And everybody knows this. Everyone's experienced this. When you feel close to someone, when your relationship is going well, and you say, well, could you get me something out of the fridge? They'll go, okay. But when your relationship is severed, when you're mad at them, when you haven't been talking for years, and you say, could you get me something out of the fridge? They'll go, get it yourself. So that relationship gives us the willingness to solve our conflicts. So the third difference between traditional discipline and conscious discipline is in traditional discipline, we're trying to get rid of conflict. We don't like conflict. We grew up and conflict was a painful thing. It hurt. All we knew that conflict represented hurtful things, screaming, yelling, days of intense silence. So when we grew up, we want to do anything to avoid conflict. And so what we've done to try to avoid conflict is usually rewards and punishment. If you have no conflict this morning, I give you a little gummy bear. Or we'll take you to McDonald's if you just straighten up and act right. Or if you do these things wrong, we're going to take away things. We're going to take away recess if you're a teacher. We're going to take away TV privileges if you're a child. So it's based on these external models, external reinforcers, external punishers governing your behavior. A stimulus response. Here's the stimulus, you respond differently. Conscious discipline views conflict very, very differently. And what it does is help you. It helps you perceive conflict differently. It helps you see conflict as missing social and emotional skills. And then it teaches you the skills of how to replace those skills in yourself and in your children so that you can build healthy relationships. And in those healthy relationships, you can have connection coexisting with conflict in a very healthy, growth-orientated way. So conscious discipline asked us to rely on internal resources. It teaches us to think through things. It teaches us to reflect on what's the best decision for us. It's not based on what stimulus is going to trigger a certain reaction from me. It says, let's think it through. Let's think what might be my best choice in this situation. So if you found these ideas I shared with you intriguing and you're ready to move further in shifting from a traditional discipline model to a more conscious discipline model, Conscious Clips will be a tool that will be helpful to you. Until next time, I wish you well.
To summarize, PISD promotes a positive, proactive, preventative approach to behavior management. We focus on making students feel safe and connected so they are ready to learn. As an educator, you must ensure you understand your school's school-wide discipline plan. You must develop your own behavioral expectations in your classroom and structure your room for success. Then you must teach all these expectations to your students as you would any math lesson. Ensure they understand, monitor their progress, celebrate their successes by noticing when they do what they're supposed to do, and reteach or get support for those students who still struggle. So now that we're all moving in the same direction, let's start with the basics. Understanding the brain. As Dr. Bailey stated in the video, what we want to learn to do is understand why kids act the way they do, so we in turn can respond when we are calm and brilliant. Brain research tells us that we achieve optimal learning states when we feel safe, connected, and get opportunities to practice problem solving in a social setting. In addition, an unbalanced system can be reset, which is great news for us. That means we can learn new skills at any age if someone is willing to teach us. Watch the next video and meet my friend DJ. Pay close attention to how this high school teacher responds positively and proactively to him.
My name is DJ Baptiste, and I was born in Lacombe, Louisiana. I was raised by my grandmother. I was born to a 14-year-old mom and a 16-year-old dad, so they were young. They really weren't able to make too many decisions. I was very defiant, though. I loved to get in trouble because getting in trouble got your attention. I was the type of student where I loved attention, and I did whatever it took to get attention. I was the leader of a gang, and let me tell you why, because in a gang we got a sense of security and a sense of belonging. We feel like these my homies, they gonna take care of me, they got me, no matter what. So that give us that sense of belonging. Fight. That was our only option. We had a disagreement, we fought. Whether we playing basketball, playing hide and go seek, it didn't matter. If there's a disagreement, we fight. So I was raised like that, and that was instilled in my head. It wasn't no other option. You fight. You have to be violent. And I'm gonna tell you, we like to fight in school because we know we had a crowd. So we continue to get kicked out of school. We jump people. I mean, just so much violence. I never was a second thought. When it came to my head, that's what I did. If I wanted to fight, boom, I'm fighting. If you're close enough where I can put my hands on you, I'm hitting you in your mouth. That's just how I was. I did go to juvenile twice. Me and my homeboys was riding one time. We got pulled over by the police. The police found some pistols in the trunk, pistols up under the seat. And we wasn't even headed to out of all the times we done had guns on us, headed to go do something, the police never stopped us. But this time we were just riding around with the guns, and he stopped us. And they confiscated all the guns and took us down, took the guns, and yeah, pretty bad. It was my first day of my senior year of school, and everybody was always tell me, since you hate school so much and you're ready to get out of school, then why don't you just go ahead and put forth a little effort and finish your senior year? And I didn't look at it like that. I looked at a school as a place of that's where I can associate. This one I can make people laugh. I can be a leader still because people want to see me. People want to follow me. I can look at girls, and if anything's going on between the hours of 8 and 3, it's gonna happen in school. So I didn't want to miss it. So that was my little motivation for school, to go to school, because I didn't want to miss anything. And I walked in Miss P class. That's what I call it, Miss P class, late.
My name is Donna Porter, and I teach public speaking at Picayune Memorial High School in Picayune, Mississippi.
I sat back and thought about it. When you late to something, everybody looks at you.
And all of a sudden the door flings open, and this huge student that I've never seen in my life walks in and says,
"What's up?" And she looked, And I said, what's up? You know, and I just had the attention of the class that fast.
My first thought is, why did this happen to me? On the first day of school when I'm trying to set the tone? And then I thought, I've got this. Thank goodness I've got this. But to be able to access my brilliance, I have to take a deep breath, stay composed, and watch him, look at his nonverbal language, because all behavior is purposeful.
She said, well, I noticed you're late to my room. There's no problem because you probably couldn't find it. I just kind of looked at her with this crazy look like, yeah, whatever. And then she was like, well, have a seat. And I looked at her, I said, do you have any kids?
And I said, well, actually, your name is DJ, Mr. Baptiste. I have two, and I just informed the class about it, but because you missed my room, you didn't hear. So are you married, he said. And I said, actually, I just told the class I've been married for 30 years.
I stepped back and said, 30 years? Folded my arms, looked up and down and said, don't you think it's time for a change? Now, at that point in time right there, I expected her to get red in the face, lose her composure, run to her desk, get a referral, write me up, and send me out. I was ready for that. That's what I expected. And now that I've learned the brain seeks patterns. So that was the pattern that my brain was seeking. You be disrespectful, you get sent out of class, but you get the attention that you want. She didn't do that. She looked at me, she smiled, and said,
do you go to the doctor when you're well? And he looked at me very funny. He said, no, you go when you're sick. I said, do you come to school when you know everything? He said, I guess not. I guess you come supposedly to learn. I said, well, you've got a lot to learn, and I can't wait to teach you. And then I left him with that feeling of angst. And then I said, you know what I noticed more importantly about you? You have charisma.
Charisma? You know, she was like, do you know what that means? I said, I'm cute. And everybody in the class laughed. And she was like, something like that. She was like, but you just know how to work a room, you know? And I said, I was just listening to her. She was like, she threw me off because she started talking good about me after I wanted her to be kind of get into a power struggle with me. That's what I wanted.
And I said, so I've been thinking in the last few seconds, I give jobs to my students in high school. Do you know anything about jobs in school? He said, oh yeah, in kindergarten, I was the line leader. I said, we don't have a line leader in high school, but we have appropriate jobs. And I usually take a week or so to figure out what job would best fit what student. I do a multiple intelligence survey, and we tell a little bit about ourselves. But you know what, DJ? I don't need to do all that with you, because you're innately designed to be a greeter. He's like, a greeter? What's that? And I said, a greeter is someone that will stand at my door every morning.
As everybody come in, I get to shake everybody's hand, appropriately hug the girls. That threw my mind off. And then she said, on top of that, I get to come in front of her class and have my own session for 2 to 3 minutes. How does that sound? That's what she said. I said, it sounds too good to be true, so let me run it back to you. I said, so you mean to tell me I get to stand outside your classroom, shake everybody's hand who comes by, then on top of that, I get to come in front of the class to have my own session? She was like, yeah. I said, well, I want, you know what I'm saying, I want to try this. She was like, but it's one catch. And I remember I dropped my head like I knew it was something, you know.
All you have to do is be on time.
Because if you're my greeter, that means you have to be the first one here so everybody get a chance to see you and shake your hand before they walk in my classroom. And I just remember shaking my head like, all right, I try this, you know. I see what it's something here I can't tell yet, but it was something there, and I just remember thinking I try this. And she said, okay, pick up your backpack that you threw down and go have a seat. And that was the first day of my new life.
Day 2, I'm standing in the hall and I see this mass of people just parting, and the only figurative language I can think of is Moses parting the Red Sea. And here comes this huge guy, and I hear these words that are so important for anybody watching this video. Everybody move out of my way. I've got to get to Miss Porter's class on time because, listen, I have a job to do. I have a job to do. A disconnected child is a discouraged child. He needed to be encouraged, and every day he stood from day 2. He had been in the criminal justice center, he had been expelled from the alternative school, he had been in school isolation, out of school suspension. Nothing worked. All he needed was to be encouraged. And he became my greeter. We usually have jobs just every 9 weeks, but by unanimous vote of the class, he became the year-long greeter because they felt nobody could do the job as well as DJ.
I feel like the experiences that I went through in my life was meant to happen so I can come back and help kids, help teachers understand. I feel like I have a gift that I need to share, a testimony that I would like to share, and I know I can help kids along with teachers. Oftentimes teachers get into it with students, they have problems with students because they don't have the skills. And I feel like anytime I can help a teacher get the skills, she has a chance to save a life. And I often tell teachers, I want you to have the same success story that Ms. Porter had. I want you to have that student that you walk down the aisle with to that graduation. I want you to have that student that say he owes his life to you. And the only reason she has that is because she had the skills of conscious discipline. So anything that's dealing with conscious discipline, I'm all for.
So how did Miss Porter learn the skills she just demonstrated? First, she learned about brain science. So here we go. We begin our learning about the brain by understanding 4 basic principles. The brain is pattern seeking. The brain functions optimally when we feel safe. The best exercise for the brain is exercise. And connections on the outside build neural connections on the inside. Let's look at each a little more closely. Principle 1. The brain is pattern seeking. Some of us grew up with lots of structure. We know our routines and we do them every day. Kids who grow up like this have a much easier time in school because they are used to a structured environment. They eat breakfast at the same time, they get dressed at the same time, they go to practice at the same time, and so on. The brains of these children, which is the majority of your students, are used to a certain pattern, and these type of students feel safe when a daily schedule is followed and they know what to do and how to do it. On the other hand, you will have some students who come to class who have not had much structure or routine. These students are not initially comfortable in a structured setting and most often do not feel safe most of the time. For these students, things could change from day to day. One day their mom is home, the next day she's not. One day they have food, the next day they don't. Most days are okay, but many are not. What can you do to help? Setting up predictable routines and rituals that promote safety and connection, and teaching students that making mistakes are just opportunities to learn are your first steps. The more consistent you are, the safer students feel. You'll learn more about setting up your classroom for success in Module 3, and you'll learn a few extra strategies and interventions in Module 2. But the big key on this particular principle is to understand that structure makes kids feel much safer than chaos. Principle number 2. The brain functions optimally when we feel safe. As a teacher, your job is to keep students safe. Keeping students safe physically is the easier task. We have rules and routines for that, so just follow your school-wide and classroom discipline and safety plans. Keeping students safe psychologically is equally important and not as easy. To do this, we must control our own upset no matter what the circumstance. This is not an easy task when you're feeling pressured, frustrated, or offended. A few strategies to try are to practice active calming in front of your students. So you stop, take a deep breath, and relax, or what we call STAR. Then you use positive inner speech. I am safe. I can handle this. The world will not open up and swallow me whole just because Johnny is angry and lashing out. Then you smile. That smile alone communicates to your brain that you are okay and can handle the situation. I know these techniques sound simple, but maintaining your composure so that students always feel safe is not always an easy task. Using techniques like active calming or creating a safe place in your classroom where anyone can go to for a few seconds and regain the composure are good first steps. You will learn more about this in the next module. Principle number 3. The best exercise for the brain is exercise. Mental stimulation or exercise helps the brain grow stronger, faster, and better able to complete the millions of daily tasks it is charged with, from memory to problem solving to attention. Here are a few easy ways to exercise your brain every day. Start an engaging conversation. Of course, some conversations are better than others for this purpose. Talking to a friend about how great The Bachelor was last night is probably going to prove a lot less mentally stimulating than debating the pros and cons of Obamacare. You could also read a good book. Reading a book not only stimulates the brain by forcing it to analyze words, sentence structure, and storyline, it also stimulates our imagination. You could play a game. No, we're not talking about Call of Duty or Angry Birds. Although video games that require you to strategize and otherwise figure out how to accomplish a goal can prove brain stimulating, we're talking about more old school games, particularly endeavors like crossword puzzles, chess, cryptograms, anything that requires problem solving. Faced with a problem, the brain is forced to consider various solutions, whether it be which word to choose, which move to make, etc. That thinking process is the perfect exercise to engage the brain. Finally, you could add music and movement to your life. Music and movement not only improve memory and provide more oxygen to your brain, but they also make learning fun. Principle number 4. Connections on the outside build neural connections on the inside. Go back to the video and remember from Mrs. P. You saw how Mrs. Porter took the opportunity with DJ to do just that, to build that connection. In front of her class, she modeled how to remain calm. She focused her attention on what she wanted, which was to see what strengths DJ possessed. She noticed his behavior, verbally and non-verbally. Then she connected with him by pointing out to everyone that he was charismatic and innately born to be a leader. That outside positive connection with her built DJ's first positive neuroconnection on the inside, and it made him feel good. The more positive connections we make with students, the sooner we can rewire their brains so they seek positive patterns of behavior. Building connections with students can be done by warm eye contact, gentle appropriate touch, a handshake, a high five, a pat on the back, a fist bump. Being present when speaking to students. Taking that few moments to give your undivided attention. And early morning greetings at your door is the best way to do that. Be kind and understanding. Smile, laugh, and have fun. Every day won't be the best, but starting off each day or each class period making positive connections with your students will help you as much as it will help them. So understanding and remembering the power of the 4 basic principles of the brain will help you better understand students. The 4 basic brain principles are so important to keep in mind because research has shown that we do activities to optimally develop students' brains, we can foster permanent positive changes in behavior, and can help move students from their lowest brain functioning to their highest. And it is when students are in their highest level of the brain is where learning takes place, and that's where we can teach them about academics, behavior, social, and emotional skills. So let's recap the basic principles of the brain with a brain break with Sid the Sloth from the movie Ice Age. Doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can teach positive brain patterns. You can make kids feel safe and have fun with others in a group. You can exercise the brain with music and movement, and you can make positive connections. Enjoy the next video.
What's up, my mammals? This is Sid the Sloth from the movie Ice Age, and we're about to do this new dance, the Continental Drift. It's time to get up on your feet. It's easy to do. Just follow me. Move it up. Do the Sid. Take it back. And do the Sid. Step left. Then drift. Step right. And then drift. Crisscross. And do the man-made. Crisscross. And do the man-made. Now jump, jump. Wiggle your rump. And walk it out like Granny. To the front. And do the Sid. Take it back. Everybody jump, 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 jump. Everybody jump, 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 jump. Everybody jump, 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 jump. Everybody jump, jump. Now freeze. Oh yeah, so cool, it's cool. Randy like it.
Now that we know the 4 basic principles of the brain, let's go a little deeper. Research as well as experience tells us our internal emotional states will dictate our behavior. When we are angry or upset, we tend to be more easily frustrated and lash out at others. When we feel happy and calm, we tend to be generous and thoughtful. There is a reason this happens. There are 3 states of the brain: the brainstem, or the area in red, otherwise known as the survival state; the limbic system, or the area in blue, otherwise known as the emotional state; and the prefrontal lobes, or the area in green, also known as the executive state, or the CEO of the brain. Each brain state serves a particular function, has a particular need, and draws upon certain skills. Let's take a close look at each of them. We're going to start at the lowest level of the brain, or the brainstem, and work our way up. When we fall into our brainstem, we are in survival state. We equate the brainstem with the color red, like a bull that only sees red and charges to attack. When we are triggered by a real or perceived threat, our brain is asking the question, am I safe? When we are in a survival state, we are experiencing fear. We heard from Dr. Bailey that many of us instinctively know that fear does not equal learning. Current brain research indicates fear is detrimental to optimal learning and brain development. The only skills we have to draw upon when we are in this state are flight, which will run away; fight, we defend or protect ourselves; or we freeze, we surrender and shut down. In this state, we need safety. Most responses we see from students in this state are physical, not verbal. An example of someone who is in the brainstem or in the survival state is when we see children or adults who are in flight, running away, hiding, or we see students who are ready to fight or actually fighting and they're hitting and screaming, or you may see a child in freeze mode or shut down and turned off. We can't think clearly in the survival state. We are unconscious of what we are really doing, and we are just reacting in order to survive. Students in the brainstem or in the red survival state throw tantrums, run out of the room, crawl under furniture, and hit and kick others. We have all been in a survival state at one time or another in our lifetime. Which survival skill describes you when you are scared? Do you fly or run away? Do you fight? Or do you freeze and shut down? Luckily, most of your students will not be in the brainstem, and most of them have a lot more skills with them. But when you do identify a student who is in his brainstem or in a survival state, our first step is to make them feel safe. 2 ways to do that are to actively calm yourself first. Remember, be a star. Stop, take a deep breath, and relax. And use your positive inner talk to remind yourself that you are safe and you can handle this. We also remind you to Q-tip. Quit taking it personally and realize that when a student is upset, 9 times out of 10 it is not about you. It's natural, though, to be triggered by a child throwing a tantrum or knocking over a desk. The key for you is to remain calm or regain your composure as quickly as possible so that you can respond positively to a student's upset mode rather than react negatively. When you model composure, you create safety for the student and move him or her into the higher brain state, known as the emotional state or the limbic system. The limbic system represents an emotional state which includes patterns from childhood. We do what was done to us, we blame others, and we almost always use some type of name-calling, profanity, and or any other verbal aggressive act. This state is triggered by the world not going our way. We are limited again in our skills and cannot see from another's point of view. This unconscious state keeps us on autopilot, so out falls words and tone that match those of key authority figures from our childhood. If my parent cusses when they are upset, I will cuss too. If my mom talks about others negatively when she is tired, I will do that too. As a teacher, we too do what we know. We often revert to disciplining the same way we were disciplined, even if we know these behaviors to be ineffective or hurtful. In this emotional brain state, the developmental need of students is connection. They are asking the question, am I loved? Does anybody care about me? In this emotional state, or what we refer to as the blue state, our skills again are limited to name calling. This is where you see kids socially isolate others. They're blaming, they're whining, they're saying things like, you don't like me, you can't play with me, I don't care. The only way to soothe the emotional state is through connection. The limbic system, or the emotional state, is where most people are on any given day. Emotions are the gatekeeper to accessing the higher or lower centers of the brain. Have you ever started off the day badly? You're running late, the slowest driver in the world decides to get in front of you, and your boss just happens to be standing at the door when you walk in. We would say you are in your emotional state, your blue state, because you are just stressed and exhausted and upset. Your boss now has the power to notice your face and either brighten your day by saying, "What a morning you must have had. I'm glad you are here safe and sound," which would move you to a higher center of your brain and make you feel safe and connected. Or he or she could reprimand you in front of your other colleagues and say, "You must not like this job very much since getting to work on time doesn't seem important to you," which would send you to your lowest center of the brain or survival state and make you shut down possibly for the rest of the morning. We have that same power as educators when we work with children. We can brighten their day and help them access their higher levels of the brain, or we can be the straw that breaks the camel's back by losing our composure, then ensuring we express that anger and frustration onto the child, and then push them into their lower center of the brain. When we identify that a student is in their limbic or emotional state, we need to make them feel connected and loved. Two ways to do that is to give empathy. You seem angry. Something must have happened. Then let the student talk and tell you what happened. Just getting the story out and having and being heard for many is all they need. Or you could give the student two positive choices that focus on what you want. So if you want a student who walked in late to make up the warm-up activity that they missed, then you would say, "Johnny, I know you're having a tough morning," which is empathy. So then you give him two positive choices. You can come see me during lunch to complete the warm-up, or you can stop by after school. Which would work best for you? Once a student starts to problem solve, then you have successfully moved that child into their highest level of their brain, or their prefrontal lobe. Our prefrontal lobe represents an executive state in which we can access our wisdom and our brilliance. When we are in this state, we are ready to learn. We can solve problems, we make good decisions, we can reflect on mistakes that we've made. We are the CEO of our behavior, and we can truly be brilliant. In this state, the developmental need is problem solving. We're asking the question, what can I learn? In this state, we are empowered to change and make wise choices. We refer to this state as being in the green. Brain research differs a little on the specific skills or behaviors exhibited in this state, but in general, we have both thinking and behavioral emotional skills that we can draw upon. Watch the next video to learn more.
Welcome to Conscious Clips of Our Time Together. Today we're going to talk about the frontal lobes of the brain and how it relates to discipline and guidance. The frontal lobes are the CEO of the brain. It's the boss of the brain. It's the executive of the brain. And thus it gives us the executive skills. This part of the brain is right behind our forehead, and so these are our frontal lobes. Specifically, we're going to talk about the prefrontal lobes. Now, I run Loving Guidance, so I am a boss. So I can relate to these skills a great deal. Now, they come in two categories. Basically, the frontal lobe and these skills called executive skills have two main parts to them. One is to decide what to do out of all the many things you could do, and how to organize and plan that so you can achieve it. At the same time, you got to manage your emotions so you don't get sidetracked and overwhelmed. Often I hear people come up to me and say, oh, you need a Sophie series. You need a Sophie series for the little kids, like a Schubert series, or you need to make this, or you need to write a book about this. And I'm so overwhelmed, I'm like, yeah, right. So my frontal lobes can't handle that information. So let's go and break these two up. There's executive skills that have to do with thinking, and there's executive skills that have to do with managing our emotions. So the thinking executive skills include such things as planning. You got to plan what you want to do. Organization. How are you going to get the resources there to do this? Time management. What's your timeline? Working memory. You got to remember who's doing what part of things. And self-monitoring. Along the way, you got to say, how am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? Now think about this in terms of young children. How able are they to plan at certain ages? How can they organize their materials? How do they know how long something is going to take? How many children wait to the last minute before making a book report that they needed to start reading 2 weeks ago? And working memory, can they remember to take their book to school? Did they even know what the assignment was? And monitoring themselves. So these skills that we call executive skills take 2 decades to develop, and they develop very slowly over time. Our job as a parent or a teacher is to be the child's frontal lobes while theirs is developing. So just with these thinking skills, how can we help a child plan, organize, manage their time, remember what they need to take care of, and evaluate themselves? Constantly, these are the things we must help children do. Sometimes we need to make a checklist for our older children. This is what you need to have done before you go to bed. We have visuals so children know what to do, what to expect. We have reminders. Remember this. We constantly must be the child's surrogate frontal lobes. Now imagine what happens if you've got a problem in one of these areas yourself. You have a problem in planning. You have a problem in organization. You have a problem in time management. If you are missing these skills, it's going to be impossible to help your child develop them. So conscious discipline is a frontal lobe skill development program. It helps us develop the skills we need so we can help children develop the skills they need. The second set of these executive skills, which is the big name for all the skills the frontal lobe does, besides the thinking ones we just talked about, are the behavioral or emotional skills. The frontal lobes allow us to have impulse control. It allows us to regulate our emotions so we just don't get so overwhelmed or so angry and sidetracked. It allows us to have flexibility, to shift from one thought to the next thought, in essence to multitask. It allows us to have task initiation, to start a project, and persistence, despite obstacles, to finish it. Again, as a CEO or the boss of a company, I can tell you that there's times where it's hard for me. I start a project and I don't finish it because there's so many obstacles. Or I'm focused on one project and 8 projects need my attention, and I get so overwhelmed that my emotions kind of stop the process again. So these executive skills, as you can see, really are the skills of a CEO of our brain. And even though they come from this area called the frontal lobe, they integrate with every area of the brain. Just like me as the CEO, I interact with every person who works with me so that I know what's going on in each phase. So every area of the frontal lobe is engaged with every other area of the brain. Now think about this in terms of what we need to do with children. If children takes 2 decades for them to develop impulse control, 2 decades for them to regulate their emotions, 2 decades for them to start a task and finish it, we still again have to be the child's frontal lobe as these develop. We must model these. And again, conscious discipline is the program that teaches you how to access, develop, strengthen your frontal lobes so in turn you can help develop the frontal lobes of your children. Just think about all the executive skills required in completing homework for children. First, they have to
organize their materials. They have to manage their time. They have to know if I got to start at 7, so I'll be done at 8. They need to plan what to do first and what to do second. They have to monitor themselves all the way through it, and they have to remember what's supposed to be done, what they've completed, and what they haven't completed. At the same time, they've got to manage their emotions because they don't understand the math. They've got to regulate their impulse control because they'd much rather watch TV or maybe get a snack or go outside and play with friends. And they also then have to kind of multitask. Well, I've got a little bit from English, I got a little bit over here from math, I got this. And they must be able to start this process and end it despite all the obstacles that happen in the middle, including a 2-year-old brother sticking gum to their pants. So this is a huge problem, and you can see why it's such an aggravation for parents, because we say go do your homework and leave them to it. It's impossible for children to develop all these skills. We must constantly prompt, cue, assist, help them, give them visual, structure the environment. You will do your homework from 7 to 8. Here's the one you will start with first. Here's what you will do first. You need to take some breaks. Let's calm down. You can do it. We help them regulate their emotions when they run into obstacles. And the problem with the frontal lobes is they are labor intensive. They require an adult right there with the child constantly for their development. And one of the problems in our society now is that we're so busy. People are working so long. Everyone is so busy. We don't have time to put in what it takes for frontal lobe development. Conscious discipline is a frontal lobe development program. Most of what we call discipline problems are simply undeveloped, immature executive skills. Conscious discipline will help you and your children be successful as they develop through life the skills necessary to be successful all through life. Until next time, I wish you well.
Here is a list of the executive skills you just learned about. Press pause for a moment and read over them again. Remember, these skills take more than 2 decades to develop, and that is assuming every child has a wonderful role model to learn from. Here are some language and interventions that will be helpful to remember to use when you see that a student needs executive skill development. Use problem-solving language like, "You wanted more time. It's hard when you want to do your best and time runs out." "You were hoping you could take the work home and finish it." Or, "You wanted my attention." "You may not get up from your seat, roam around the room, and bother others. When you want my attention, raise your hand and wait for me to call on you." Utilize as many, if not all, of these interventions listed to help your students be more successful when they are in their executive state. We spent a lot of time learning about the basic brain principles, the 3 brain states, and the importance of executive skills. So why is all this important? Emerging, evolving, or lacking executive skills are the core of what we call most discipline problems. Understanding the 4 basic principles of the brain and the 3 brain states helps us see student behavior totally different. Students are not good or bad kids, but rather students who are lacking skills that we need to teach them. If a child is in their brainstem or survival mode, we need to make them feel safe. Once they feel safe and we move them up to their emotional state, now they're saying ugly, mean things, they're whining, they don't feel like they have a single person who cares about them. Now we need to make them feel connected. We need to remind them and provide them with empathy and show them that we care. Then once kids are in their executive state, many kids have the executive skills of planning or time management or organization. But if they don't, we are our children's surrogate frontal lobes or executive skills lending library, because free frontal lobes and concurrent executive skills take 24 years to mature. We often expect kids to already know what to do, And you'll hear teachers say, "Don't you know that already?" But now we know. No, they shouldn't. It'll take 20 years for them to learn it all. Therefore, we must lend our frontal lobes or executive skills to our students and gradually teach, prompt, model, and turn over the skills when appropriate. Conscious discipline empowers us to be conscious of brain-body states in ourselves and children. We learned about the 3 states of the brain that dictate behavior: survival, emotional, and executive. We learned the needs we have when we are in each state, whether the need is for safety, connection, or for problem solving. And we learned what skills we project when we are in each state, whether it be fight, flight, or freeze, verbal or social aggression, or problem solving and learning. Conscious discipline provides us with the practical skills we need to manage our thoughts, feelings, and actions. With this ability to self-regulate, we are then able to teach children to do the same. By doing this, we can help children who are physically aggressive or in their survival state, or verbally aggressive, the ones who are in their emotional state, become more integrated so they can learn and use problem-solving skills and improve their executive skills. When we understand the brain state model, we can clearly see the importance of building our homes, school, and businesses on the core principles of safety, connection, and problem solving. Let's review. Take the Module 1 quiz and see how you do. The answers will be on the next slide if you need them. You did it! You learned the first piece of PISD's model of behavior management, understanding a little bit about the brain and brain states to better understand why students act the way they do, and a few things that you could do to positively respond and intervene to help. Now move on to the next module and learn more strategies that will help you build positive relationships in the classroom. Finally, Module 3, CHAMPS, will show you how to structure your classroom for success. Please note that the resources for this presentation came from Conscious Discipline by Dr. Becky Bailey, Safe and Civil Schools by Dr. Randy Sprick, and the experience and knowledge of the PISD Behavior Response Team. For more information or to learn more about any section of this presentation, go to www.consciousdiscipline.com, visit www.safeandcivilschools.com, or email me at lmrodriguez@pasadenaisd.org. My team, along with other PISD staff, provide training for all PISD staff throughout the year, so log into Eduphoria and look for any workshops you may be interested in attending. Enjoy the remainder of your training. For now, I wish you well.